Good morning or good afternoon, whenever you're choosing to watch this. This is Patrick Slattery from the sponsorship office. I wanted to take just a brief moment to add a little color, perhaps some clarity to the email that included this video link. As all of you should be aware by now, the corporate members have amended the bylaws for all 13 Zavarian Brothers sponsored schools. And among some of the changes is the inclusion of a new board level governance committee. The governance committee is meant to replace or augment the work of our old nominating committees across the network. So I do want to jump into a couple slides here and point out. In the email that I had sent, you have an attachment that looks a lot like this picture on the screen. My purpose in sending that to you in that 2-page document is really threefold. First, I want to create something that serves as a general reminder of the responsibilities of the governance committee. I'd encourage the chair of your governance committee to review this document and to use it to help shape committee meeting agendas in the year ahead. While schools do need to have the flexibility to make the governance committee their own in their own unique context, I would say the responsibilities I've outlined in this document are pretty basic to the concept of the committee work. A second purpose of the document is to highlight resources that exist for all of our boards. You'll note multiple live links buried in the document that will take you to resources to use or adapt, as I've highlighted here on the screen. I want to reiterate that our office is not telling schools to use these documents, but we're simply sharing them for the governance committees so that you have some ideas of what is available. The third point I want to highlight about this document is that some of the various webinars that we plan to host in the year ahead. You'll note a few of these topics highlighted with the green font pointed by some of the arrows there below. Looking ahead, much of what we are sharing is based off of resources like this from BoardSource. I do have this document linked in the white paper that I sent in the email. I'm just reminding you it exists in case you want to use it yourself with other governance committee members to review the role of the committee. We've consolidated their 13 categories into something more like this on the following slide. At a high level, this is the vision for the XBSS governance committees. All 7 of these items are provided additional detail in my email. But just to recap quickly, the first 2 focus on new board directors and probably align quite closely to what was your nominating committee work. As a reminder, the governance committee concept is largely replacing what was that nominating committee, elevating the scope and importance of the committee work. Items numbered 3 through 6 herein might be new areas of focus for your board. And as outlined in my email, they're designed to help the board take a deeper dive in recognizing and implementing effective board governance. For point number 4, I might encourage boards to consider soliciting board feedback after your first board meeting, particularly if you've never solicited such in the past from your directors or trustees. The process might better inform the future needs of the governance committee and help the executive committee formulate future board agendas and committee work. We have linked some sample meeting assessment instruments that your governance committee could use to personalize in your own school context. And if you can bear with me, let me share one anecdote as well that speaks to these items around board meetings and use of board time. I may have worked with probably 100 Catholic schools in my career. Many were K-8 diocesan schools with advisory boards, and those advisory boards really had no governing role. One of the biggest problems I always saw with many of those K-8 boards is the directors would show up at meetings, listen to a few reports, engage in little to no strategic conversation, and then go on their merry way until the next meeting. Our XBSS boards must ensure that committee work and board meeting agendas use time wisely and go beyond simply tackling the fiduciary responsibilities of the board, that our work is truly transformational. We need to be asking if the work of the board is strategic and visionary, or are we simply settling into merely hearing board reports on materials shared in writing in advance of the meeting? These are some of the questions the governance committee should be considering in their local context in close collaboration with the heads of schools. I'd also just point out that the white paper we attached in the email has multiple other resources linked as noted in that Roman numeral number 7. As for the linked resources, I encourage you to click on a few, just like what you're seeing up here on the screen, and adapt them to your own needs. For example, we have some sample meeting feedback instruments, board meeting feedback instruments, and also end of the year board self-assessment instruments. For the latter, I've shared an example here on the right that I created working with Malden Catholic. The document incorporates the principles of good governance from the National Association of Independent Schools, but I've also woven in our Xaverian charism and mission into the document to better ensure in Malden Catholic's case that the document was personalized to their board and their community's needs. In the links that you'll find in the attached document, you'll also find some similar resources from some non-XBSS entities such as Independent School Management, again, NAIS, the National Association of Independent Schools, and BoardSource. One that you have on the screen here, again, that you can access is an example of a board matrix resource that you might choose to use to get a better handle on the composition and skill sets present on your board. The matrix might identify areas that need to help the committee better focus on new board director identification and cultivation. We've also included a number other of resources for advancement and development dashboards that a board might want to consider using. There's probably more information in these links than you can consume in one meeting, but the sample board reports they share might stir some good conversations amongst boards and heads of schools relative to your board reporting. Again, I'd encourage strong collaboration with the heads of schools and the advancement teams on what sort of dashboard and benchmark reporting makes sense in your local school context. I also encourage you not to forget the XBSS board handbook. 2 years ago, we added in a second half to the handbook, which really focused on the principles of good governance with a Xaverian mission overlay. We've included indicators of success under each principle of good governance that could make for good conversation or reflection at the board or committee level. Same could be said about the partners and mission document that you should all have received and be familiar with at this point. I'd ask you to consider leveraging some of the reflection questions found throughout the booklet in your committee work and board formation efforts. I make mention in that white paper that was attached in the email about boards and school heads taking a look at the opening prayer of our board meetings. And I'd ask you to ask these questions. Are our board prayers more perfunctory starts to the meeting, or are we leveraging the prayer in that time to serve as a formation opportunity in our Catholic Xaverian mission? Do our board prayers allow directors and trustees to just be passive recipients, or does it engage them in reflection and possibly some discussion? The Partners in Mission booklet can serve as a resource for building our board meeting prayers that engages our directors and trustees in coming to a deeper understanding of our mission. As I mentioned earlier, you'll also note several webinar topic inserts in green font on the attached document in the email. It's our intention to offer some short pre-recorded Zoom on these discussion topics, allowing you all to consume the information at your leisure. For example, a few schools have inquired about new ways to engage former board trustees to keep them involved. We do have some schools in the network that have developed some pretty strong trustee emeriti programs, and we'll look to highlight those programs through interviews with our school heads and board leadership. And finally, I'd ask you to consider sharing any additional resources you may have that you use at the board or committee level. Please send those directly to me. I can add them to the live links. It's my intention, that the linked resources remain current and relevant to your needs. And also, please let us know if there are other desired webinar topics for us to explore and produce. We're here to support your needs in the sponsorship office. And if I could also ask for each board, if you haven't done so already, please share the name of the director or trustee that will be sharing your governance committee work. I'd like to ensure that beyond communicating with board leadership and heads of schools, that I can connect with anybody who might be chairing up these governance committees in the year ahead. So with that, I want to leave you with my favorite quote from Theodore Reichen. The work that you all do as board directors, trustees, and heads of schools, it is clearly something special. It's amazing what you do. And I know full well it comes with a tremendous amount of labor, effort, and zeal. So on behalf of the sponsorship office, the brothers, Ben Horgan, Brother Richard, and I do want to thank you for all that you do across the network. Your work and wisdom is so much appreciated. So again, please let us know if there is anything we can do to support you and your work, and have a great school year. We'll see you virtually or at meetings to come. Thank you.